In 2003, Harmonix Music Systems produced and released their second entry in a fairly underrepresented genre of rhythm music games. Amplitude, the spiritual successor to Frequency, their first game, was a different kind of music game. It wasn't the two-dimensional like Parappa the Rappa or Vib Ribbon, and it wasn't music made to function like Simon Says, like Space Channel 5. Keep in mind, Harmonix would go on to produce both the early Guitar Hero games and all of Rock Band. They were on the ground floor when it came to revolutionizing the music game. While Frequency and Amplitude functioned very similar, Amplitude was taking a good formula and making it magnificent. It took a circular track and turned it into a highway, allowing for beautiful song look variation and winding paths. Don't get me wrong, Frequency was a good first attempt, except the songs were split into too many parts, therefore making it too difficult to lose energy. No variation between tracks, very forgettable soundtrack, very easy game, except for when you're attempting to get your bearings on the game, at which the game is very hard. Stiff track movement. The game has limited creative options. Again, it was a start. Amplitude took every aspect and made it better. Challenging yet fair difficulty for every song. Reasonable checkpoints. Way better soundtrack. Let's put a pin in that one. Complete variation of all tracks. Tons of avatar creation. Colors. Oh my, the pretty colors. Plus, tracks can wind and turn, making every song a new experience. So as I said, Amplitude is a perfecting of Frequency. Is it perfect? Of course not. The soundtrack as a whole is not great. Yes, there are always the select few that can be listened to endlessly, mostly Freeze Pop and Symbian Project, but the rest are pretty forgettable. Keeping multipliers together can be fairly challenging, especially when moving from tracks on opposite ends. That's it. Not to throw my hand this quickly, but I love this game. I bought it for my PS2, and no rhythm game has brought me as much joy and reverence. So with this history lesson out of the way, I feel like you have the resources to hear me talk about the video at hand. Amplitude, PS4, is a crowd-funded reboot of the PS2 game of the same name. My initial reaction to this idea was skeptical, based on one PS2 to PS4 controller modification. As you probably noticed, the games function around a 3-note charting system based left to right under L1, R1, and my doubted button R2. On the PS2, R2 was a button, now a trigger. Without testing or research, I believed it to be counterproductive, potentially registering notes whenever the game felt rather than when I wanted. My introduction to the game came with a free, downloadable demo, and my worst fears were nullified. Notes are registered perfectly through that trigger, and I bought the game. I'll leave my exact perceptions for the end, but I will take this video to compare the remake to the predecessor. The goal of making the game was funded by the fans, so they probably wanted to make those people, the main audience of those buying the game, knew exactly what they expected from an Amplitude reboot, happy with the product. I'll go one topic at a time. This is a big topic, but I will go at the little things one at a time. Amplitude had tight, precise controls. No change here. The game is tight, reads inputs well, and functions essentially perfect. Game feel was replicated very well, but changes were made. Multiplier now maximizes at 4 times instead of 8. The energy bar shows the number of hits that can be taken rather than an arbitrary bar. Score is now shown per note rather than the total score of the whole track. Instead of being able to judge a track difficulty before getting into it, fills and second half solos can come out of the blue. Yes, knowing the track in advance helps figure out what is coming, but initial playthroughs, that stuff will come out of nowhere. Of course, that also assumes you're playing on Expert the first time, like I did. In specific game aspects, changes were also made to... All of the power-ups are named differently. I don't understand exactly why they did it, but they did. They're all the same power-ups, just different names, except for Multiplier. Instead of lasting for 8 continuous measures, it lasts 6. Unless you activate it at the end of a string, then you can make it last 7. My main issues with the power-ups in the remake come from acquiring them. If you want to get a power-up, play the corresponding measure with highlighted notes to grab it. Or, play the measure before the power-ups show up and you'll get them that way. Since I grew up with the original game, the second added feature screwed me over so many times on my initial playthrough. I would have a certain power-up in my queue, then boom, it would get replaced by something random and undesired. The second problem is just visibility. I never can see where these damn power-ups are coming from. Maybe it's because winding of paths are randomized and power-ups are always in the same place, so I should know where they are beforehand. But seeing them is a different story. The PS2 iteration had all power-ups brightly lit, displayed measures in advance so you can make the appropriate track move. When you can't see them easily, you can't reach them when you need to. This becomes important when it comes to... Let me be frank. PS2 Amplitude nailed difficulty. It had 4. Mellow, normal, brutal, and insane. The jumps between the first 3 were reasonable, and insane added another level of difficulty. Checkpoints became obsolete, and energy regeneration can only be done by completing tracks. No breaks. To the breakneck type of Amplitude player I am, that is the only difficulty I play. In the new game, which had the 4 difficulties, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert, I jumped into expert, the hardest difficulty. Immediately, I noticed the breaks, refilling my energy, and everything being too easy because of it. What I did not know was the completion of the campaign is a 5th hardest difficulty, super. Super takes the expert difficulty, cuts out breaks, turns power-ups into limited quantity and only multiplies, and auto-fills the energy to full and goes down per hit. Your energy drains until it's gone and functions on a 2 consecutive mistakes and you're done model. Also, the game even gives leeway on 2 consecutive mistakes. Making an error and making a quick adjustment to at least attempt survival is rewarded. It's a nice touch to add such crazy rewarding difficulty, especially since there is a hard as hard trophy for completing every song on this difficulty. But I still don't see why it was created. Super is leaps and bounds the best difficulty for getting high scores and records, but I like the old way of records. Seeing online world records set by people maximizing points with every power-up in the game was always sweet. Now that I understand how to get the highest scores in the world, considering how many of my plays were in the top 100, top 50, and better, it's all about maximizing the number of multiplies that can be acquired in a single run. I already explained how hard it is to see the damn power-ups, so I still have records where I played the song perfect, but I get none of the multiplies in a given song. Super was a good try, but the classic expert would have been a nice touch. Difficulty is set by how many notes are replicated from a song chart, but of course, difficulty is controlled by... Amplitude's original soundtrack was the weakest link of the original game. Good artists had songs in the games, it was just some odd choices from those artists. Weezer had Dope Nose, David Bowie had Everyone Says Hi, and Blink-182 had The Rock Show. The last one you may have heard of, but lots of songs in the games were unrecognizable and sometimes even not so great to listen to. I found my personal favorites and hidden gems, but I couldn't deny the lackluster quality of the overall soundtrack. Is there an improvement to the new one? Well, there's definitely an effort. Bonus songs were added from Kickstarter patrons, past artists in the first game, and some in-house Harmonix employees. These selections are pretty tops, like Phantoms by Freeze Pop, The Return of Synthesize by Simian Project, one of the better and more challenging songs from the original, and crazy cool stuff like Assault on Psycho Fortress and Unfinished Business. Most of the rest of these bonus songs are forgettable, but none are frustrating. This is where the campaign music comes in. I really like Magpie and Dalatect, but that's my limit. Out of the 15-song campaign, 3 I like, 10 I can barely remember, and 2 I outright loathe. Let's be fair, 2 songs in the original did the same, but my motivations were different. There wasn't an automatically updating world leaderboard that drives me to be the best. Enter Astrocyte and Digital Paralysis. I swear, whoever charted these songs were having a bad day. Whenever a track is left, middle, right, middle, left, repeat until the end of time, I am not a happy camper. My hand cramps up, my brain shuts down, and I get angry. No bonus songs chart to be miserable, of course. Most of the bonus songs weren't made specifically for this game. They were just put in. The campaign songs were made for the game, so this charting was definitely intended. So what would I rate the soundtrack as a whole? C- from a listening standpoint. From a gameplay standpoint, A. Amplitude's gameplay holds the soundtrack up. Playing these songs and feeling every facet of a song through track movement and manipulation is amazing. It's immersive, it's enriching. It means the soundtrack could almost be a nature soundtrack. I kid, but this is why I still don't have a problem with the original game soundtrack. The immersive level design made even the slowest, lamest songs fun. So excluding the 2 songs that make me cuss at the screen in frustration, the remake works the same way. While tracks aren't individually crafted like the original, varied winding and design keeps levels entertaining. And speaking of individual design, there may be varied level design in the new game, but it is nowhere close to what it used to be. Levels in the original game had specific color schemes, certain events, and every song was different. Yes, it was the same every time, but the differences in track to track made every song unique and memorable. Sometimes the background would actually react to your inputs, which was really cool. If a note streak ended early enough, you could move to a track with a delayed start and actually get it out of the way sooner. It's quite a fine detail, and I'm not angry it wasn't in the new one, I'm just a bit disappointed. When moving between tracks, the original had movement come one track at a time, so if you were on one side of the highway and had no time to get all the way back to the other side, you were boned. To fix this very problem, your speeder in the new one automatically jumps to the closest track based on the direction pushed. This feature is great and takes out impossible track movement. My other favorite feature of the new game is Freak Mode. It takes the standard highway and turns it into frequency, a circle. Moving to any track in the new game is easily possible, but seeing what that track's notes are is ridiculously hard. When the highway is a glorified circle, seeing the tracks before moving to them is easily possible. And when you're playing on Super trying to better scores, you need Freak Mode. Making mistakes is not permitted when going for those high scores, and Freak Mode helps achieve perfect scores. Speaking of making those scores count, the online scoreboard in the new game is the exact addition I needed in my new Amplitude game. Not only that, that allows me to play the game repeatedly and endlessly. Comparing world scores is the greatest motivation to keep playing. Seeing 100 people in the world do a song better than you did, it makes you want to do better. I want to milk points here and there. It makes me go for perfect and hit retry with the first mistake. This is what lastability comes from. This is what has finally put me in the top 40 of scorers in the world, and actually top 25 in a couple of songs. So, if I'm being completely honest, I love this game. Whether it's because I enjoy rhythm games or have nostalgic connection to the original game, this game is great. But really, it's personal preference. Look at it this way. There are 5 games I had been playing when I got Amplitude for the PS4. Those games were Black Ops 3, Rocket League, Metro 2033, Rainbow Six Siege, and Minecraft. Minecraft, I don't play by myself. 3 of those other ones, Black Ops 3, Siege, and Rocket League, which are mostly online based, I don't like to play without friends because everybody playing online is so freaking good at those games. Experience playing online have become frustrating to miserable. And Metro 2033, this is the most average first-person shooter I've ever played in my life. I bought Amplitude looking for something fresh and different, which is what I needed so desperately. It delivered, and because of that, it will be one of my favorite games of the year. So if you highly enjoy rhythm music games, I would say give this gem an absolute buy. Thanks for watching my analysis of PS4 Amplitude. If you want to see more stuff I do, check out some of my pop song stuff. And if you like harmonics, check out Calvin's analysis of Rock Band 4. He's a little more articulate than I am, so that's scripted a tad better than mine. Also, if you want more Amplitude, check out my high score on Phantoms by Freeze Pop. And if you like hearing the sound of my voice, Let's Plays, and the most random assortment of content possible, check out Bulk Noise. We're loud and fun, so give us a try. Please?